And welcome back to Masters of Modern. I'm your host, Alex Kessler, here with my co-hosts, Ben Bateman and Baby Yoda.
So when you ordered the Baby Yoda, was it already sold out online? Like you had to wait in line kind of a thing for it? Or
No, I got it in the first 20 minutes. I got 3 accidentally because it glitched out. So I think I bought it twice. And then I bought a second one when my wife was like, oh, you didn't get me one? So I bought 3.
And when you say accidentally, you definitely mean intentionally.
No. I intentionally bought 2. The third one was just because when I hit checkout, it glitched out and I didn't think I got it. So I just bought it again.
Wow.
So I have
rock and roll. Quarantine, man.
Yeah, quarantine Baby Yodas. So, welcome to Masters of Modern. We are a podcast that focuses on modern and magic and all of the modern lifestyles of a Magic player. Today, we're going to be talking about kind of questioning, is modern a rotating format? So this is a big question that's been going on just in general as more and more powerful cards are being printed. Like, obviously, modern doesn't rotate as in like a set leaves and as new sets come in the way standard does. But the format has been, due to the power level of cards being printed, been changing pretty drastically on at least a quarterly basis. And at some points in the last year, shorter time frames. And that on top of bannings has obviously kind of increased this as a problem. So we wanted to get into kind of a conversation about how the power level of cards that Wizards is printing, how they're affecting older formats. Is this intentional? There's definitely some kind of conspiracy theories that Wizards is printing powerful cards in the standard because they want modern players to buy more standard packs. There's conversations about how it used to be, and we've had many conversations. We'll revisit it a little bit this episode on how kind of like there's a misconception that sets in standard didn't used to affect modern, and that's just been untrue. So that's what we're talking about.
We've had a pretty major impact for a long time on that, and I think one of the things that I thought was really interesting is when we were doing our tea time at the House of Modern, which is our thing with our patrons we do before the show every week. One of the topics that came up in the conversation this week was we had a patron who was saying, I was thinking about buying into Modern back around War of the Spark, but looking at the power level of the cards involved, I just felt like my cards were going to get outclassed if this was the direction we went in. And I decided to wait because I didn't feel like there was enough stability. And so I thought that was really interesting as the guys that have been doing modern content now for 5 years, that, somebody who's a very, very like a staunch, committed Magic person interested in those eternal formats decided to wait because essentially the idea is modern is kind of a rotating format, even though when you say that, Alex, it's not really. I mean, a rotating format, for anybody who's listening and trying to figure out what that means, is rotating formats are like standard. It's as cards are introduced to the format, older cards rotate out. There's always a set number of cards and years that are sort of available, and modern is not that, or classically hasn't been that. It's cards back to 2003, back when the card face changed. Everything printed then and forward that's not banned is legal in the format. That's what modern is.
And that was it's. Being a rotating format is almost the antithesis to what modern is, right? They before modern was created, extended and the new extended were the next step after standard, and both of those had issues because of kind of the rotation, right? People would invest in very expensive decks, like you would buy Tarmogoyfs and then they would rotate out of the format, and that was always kind of problematic and made the format really unpopular. And the only time people really played it when it was a Pro Tour or PTQ based environment format. And so that was always kind of a big limitation. And then the popularity of Legacy kind of showed Wizards that they could do something different. And so they made Modern to be a place that cards from Standard would rotate into, and then you could just always play them. They're never going to go away. You're always going to get to play with your Tarmogoyfs, your Lilianas of the Veil, your Snapcaster Mages, and be able to pick a deck and be able to play it for, indeterminate amount of time. Now, obviously, metagame shifts happen. That's something they expect. They want that to happen because otherwise the format could become stale. And for the first 5 years, they would actually ban cards more to create kind of this feeling of freshness in the format. Most famously is Splinter Twin and Birthing Pod, probably, where Birthing Pod was banned during the Delve era to mix it up because Delve cards were going to be banned, but if they banned all the Delve cards, Birthing Pod would have just stayed to be the best deck, and the format would rotate to right before Delve was good, right? It would have gone right back to that August, and so they wanted the Pro Tour that was coming up to be something that was totally new. And then Splinter Twin was a very similar case. So it is something that Modern has always had a little bit of this joking rotation through bannings, but since War of the Spark, the power level of sets coming out has just been so high that people just have the vibe of like, my deck won't be viable for 3 months. And then you had the layer of multiple bannings this year between Mox Opal, Faithless Looting, Hogak, Bridge from Below, got to say the right bridge, Oko, not Veil of Summer, Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time. And, soon likely companions. Like, not only are these bannings happening, the cards then come out before those bannings, totally modifying what the format looks like. Then they get banned. Like, there's basically almost a month and a half rotation in every format in Magic. And so we want to get kind of deep dive in there. Before we do want to give a big shout out to the Nobles of House Martyr. And this is part of our Patreon. You can check it out, patreon.com. You get full unedited raw versions of the video, where if we get into little arguments, or you get to hear us communicating with Marshall if we have cool editing points, if I swear, which getting better at. You also get to get all this other cool stuff. And the Nobles get to hang out in a cool private chat right before each episode where we talk about what we're going to talk about that week. They get a little bit of an inside scoop. They help kind of, their opinions already kind of mentioned, help sculpt what we're going to talk about. So this is to you, Nobles of House Modern. Pinkies up.
Pinkies up. And those three people are Andrew Kelso, Cam Albergini, and Brandon S. Russell. This month, thank you guys all so much for your support in as the Nobles of House Modern. It's been a blast to get to hang out with you guys before the show. Yeah. So it's a very interesting topic we talk about, Alex, because I feel like the difference between right now and it's been almost 10 years now since Modern's inception, which is pretty crazy to think that it's almost been 10 years since we started this whole journey of really developing this format. We're like, I think 2011 to 2000.
Modern isn't 10 years old. No.
2003 was that's the card face change. Mm-hmm. And in 2011, it might have been 2012, but I think it's 2011 was the year that it was introduced. I think Modern's 9-ish years old.
2011 was Pro Tour Philadelphia. Yeah. Okay. So we're at 9 years or 8.5. Yeah. Okay.
So in the 8.5, 9 year range. So if you think about sort of Modern from that like 2011 to 2016 range, mm-hmm. There was definitely like we talked about it a little bit already, Eldrazi, and you talk about Splinter Twin, but like, and I guess that's probably on the tail end of those years, but really it feels like the last 2.5 years, every few months, like I remember when you made the big call on Arclight Phoenix, which we're going to talk about kind of set by set in just a minute, but that at the time seemed like this huge card that got printed. It was a big deal. It really affected the format. That was one card from that set. Pretty much every set from that one forward had like 5+ cards that totally turned Modern on its head.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting watching. I mean, and then a Night of Autumn too, right? Like Night of Autumn and Arclight Phoenix were both in that set. And then probably Ravnica Allegiance didn't do a whole lot of modifications, but then War of the Spark comes out, and like it's so hilarious to me that Neoform was this big bad coming out of the gate, right? Where this card that got multiple people thought should be banned. It was winning on turn 2, kind of breaking the format. And a year later, it's not even the 5th best card for War of the Spark.
You don't even think it's top 5?
I don't think so. Like just off the top of my head, without thinking, I think Teferi is better. I think Karn is better. I think
Narset
is probably better. Blast Zone was in that set, right? Arboreal Grazer was in War of the Spark. Is Arboreal Grazer the best card in War of the Spark? I think it is.
No.
Yeah. No. Yes.
Arboreal Grazer, the 0/3 that puts a land into play?
You mean what is it? Mox Diamond?
That is ridiculous.
I think I'm willing to go on record and say Arboreal Grazer is the best card in War of the Spark.
We can both agree that War of the Spark was a major player. I think we can both agree that War of the Spark changed the game. So
no, but I need you to agree that Arboreal Grazer was the best card in the format.
It's definitely not. It's part of one really good deck.
It's in every format. It's like seen 4 of play in multiple decks. It's in 2 decks in Modern.
What? Okay, so because we talked about this like 2 weeks ago, we like had a pretty full conversation about this card and why this card was better than other things like it in the past. I mean, is it just because?
Well, it's an ETB 1 green, right? So in essence, it is Mox Diamond, right? It's a Mox Diamond that instead of 0 mana to discard a card and get a land into play, right? It's 1 green mana to discard a card and get a land into play. That card you're discarding is just going to play, right? It's a land. You have 1 less card in hand, and now there's a land in play. And for 1 green mana, you're getting a free 0/3 reach creature that can attack. It doesn't even have defender. It's just a 0/3 that if you can give it any type of ability, it can attack. It's also a great blocker and slows every aggressive deck down. Like Goblin Guide just is shut down by this card. And draws you the land back. So like that's kind of the point, right? It's a 1 mana Mox Diamond.
I mean, I guess it's probably true. I haven't brewed with Aberril Grazer outside of the decks that already play it, right? Like it's traditionally has been played so far in sort of rampy decks. That's where it's showing.
Yeah, like before the decks that I've seen, you're probably seeing the most play are stuff that are trying to get Primeval Attack to play, right? Either decks that are trying to do it with Scapeshift or decks that are trying to do it with Amulet.
It feels like since War of the Spark, and I would say it is War of the Spark. I don't think it's Dominaria. I think it starts with War of the Spark.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the Dominaria had Teferi, right? That's like the big real contribution, and the card is obviously very good, but it's not like that. This is kind of the point before, like the era before War of the Spark. Every single set would have 1 to 3 cards that would be contributors to the format, and some of them would be big ones, like you would get Fatal Pushes, you would get Teferis, but other times it would be like, you know, we were just talking about Ravnica, not Guilds of whatever, the first set of the Ravnica 3. Ravnica 3.
Guilds.
Guilds of Ravnica, where it was not Guilds of Ravnica. That's the first.
Yeah. Ravnica Legions is the second one.
Okay. You're okay, cool. Guilds of Ravnica, where you have Knight of Autumn and
Arclight Phoenix.
Arclight Phoenix, which is like 2 very powerful cards. Arclight Phoenix definitely was a tier 1 deck, definitely modified the format, but like that's what was happening. Since then, cards just have to be banned so often because of the cards being printed that it feels like Modern is being modified pretty regularly. And people don't like that. And kind of the reason they don't like it is why Modern exists. And the idea is that Modern is a place where I can pick a deck, I can get good at that deck. I can, win a GP playing Affinity because my weekend is this weekend, or I can play Jund and I'm going to win once in a while because Jund players always win 55% of the time, and eventually that's your 55% is that weekend. And it feels like the format has been flipped over so many times last year that no one's been able to. It's like building a sandcastle with dry sand.
Well, okay, yeah. So I think that that's a good sort of introduction to this idea, which is that Modern feels distinctly in a different place than it did 2 years ago. In those days, you talked about with Knight of Autumn, which was a very impactful and very good card, but not a format-defining card. Arclight Phoenix was. Phoenix was an actual format-defining card. But generally speaking, if one card comes out of a new set that is format-defining, I think if that was the case, if it was a single card per set, and that happened 2 out of 3 sets, we'd be fine. That's great. That doesn't feel rotating. That just feels like you're getting new blood. But really starting in, 2018, which I think is when War of the Spark came out, you mentioned there's at least 7 or 8 cards that feel like they have changed the format drastically. And even core set cards started to feel that way. And
the more we kind of talk about it, I almost want to say with Dominaria, every standard set has printed a card that became the best deck card in Modern, or became the best deck in Modern, right? And I think that's more of the issue.
Are you saying that because Teferi 5 mana became Blue-White Control was the best deck?
Well, Blue-White Control was very good, but with Teferi added, it like I think Wizards stated, the reason they didn't unban Stoneforge Mystic until the next summer was because Teferi, like Blue-White decks were just doing so well consistently for a year that it was probably, and Teferi is probably the weaker end of the scale, which is an insane statement because some of the, like, Teferi is an insanely powerful card, yeah. But like Arclight Phoenix came out, and Blue-Red Phoenix decks became the best deck in the format. Before that deck did not exist, or was like, Blue-Red, Kiln Fiend-esque, like, I'm trying to gain value off of casting a bunch of spells in a turn. And then Arclight Phoenix came out, and that deck's now the best deck in the format. Then we go to Ravnica Legions.
Before you go there, I just think also, like, sort of on that topic, talking about Dominaria and how impactful it was. I think if Teferi is a good example of the power level of like what a really pushed card is, then I think some of the things from that format that had sort of minor impacts are great examples of where sets were, right? So like the Wizards Lightning, Wizards Retort stuff, those were being played in tournaments. They were good. People liked those cards. There was Blue-Red Wizards, there was Mono Blue with basically Fairy Wizards where you would get a counter spell. Those cards showed up. There was a bunch of cards from Dominaria that had that kind of effect.
Or at least people tried making them work where they're exciting in an interesting way.
That's what you would normally expect out of a set. One card, maybe two that are kind of marquee, and then 5 to 10 that are all pretty cool. It keeps Magic fresh. Flash forward to the next set, different story.
Yeah, no, I think that's the line, I guess, right? And then and then we go in the next set, right? We go into to Ravnica Allegiance. It's fine, right? There are powerful cards from that set, but nothing that broke the format. And then we hit War of the Spark, where we just listed cards that each one became a format-defining card all on its own. Modern for 6 weeks became War of the Spark led, and then then Modern Horizons comes out, and Modern Horizons, jokingly referred to as Commander Horizons, little did we all know, flips Modern on its head again, right? You not only do you have what Hogak did, right, which was the very forefront of that moment. You then have Astrolabe, kind of just once Hogak is gone, Astrolabe has been a problem in Modern and arguably a card that should be banned. But because cards keep being so much more powerful than it at its base level of problematic, it keeps dodging that ban list announcement. And that's kind of I think some of the frustration people have in general, right? The fact that there are cards that all are on banning conversations from War of the Spark that can't get a moment to be talked about in a serious way about being a problem because they keep printing worse problems. Since then, every single set, and when I say every single set, I'm including, because Modern Horizons happened, but then 2020 happened, and M20 happened, where Field of the Dead has
Summer. I mean, M20 had really good stuff.
Flipped the format on its head. By itself, that's also been a contributor to a lot of these problems.
I think also, if you go back for a second to War of the Spark, just because I think. Okay, so Modern Horizons, we can talk about the power level of the cards, but it's a little different. It's not a standard set. So it's the expectation that the cards were going to be good was already there. We already knew we were going to get something special, and it's great. I actually think
its purpose was to fix a stagnated format, right? They were coming out with it because they wanted Modern to be a wider breadth of decks possibly available, or different play styles that were previously unpowerful to be more powerful.
But you talk about the stuff that you saw in, War of the Spark, and it's you mentioned the top 5 cards, but you didn't even mention Ugin the Ineffable, or you didn't even mention Mayhem Devil, right? That's
Tamio collector Mayhem Devil. Yeah, Mayhem Devil's from here. Tamio was in this set, and she's
Tamio. I mean, Jace Welder of Mysteries became a combo card that was winning tournaments. I mean,
Nissa Who Shakes the World. Niv Reborn.
This set had legitimately 10 cards
more
that flipped the format, actually were impactful, huge mainstay cards. So that's what sets the stage for then Horizons, that I think, if not for War of the Spark, Horizons I think would have felt kind of a little bit more impactful, even though Horizons felt enormous. It just would have felt more unique. But it honestly felt like a standard set and a supplemental set were almost the same level, which is nuts.
Well, that's Modern Horizons gets, I guess, a pass. The problem with Modern Horizons is it falls in the middle of this moment, right? And this is kind of the issue that happened with Pioneer. Pioneer is currently not doing well as a format, and it's not doing well for 3 reasons. One, it's more affected by standard power levels that people are already sick of by the time they even get to Pioneer, so companions are kind of dominating the format. 2, the soft launch of let's ban a thing every week during a period of extreme ban fatigue and contributing to that ban fatigue has made people just as wary of that as they are of other formats. And C, coronavirus sadly came around during the first time there was going to be a Pioneer tournament season. So those 3 things have actually led to Historic becoming, which we'll eventually do. I think the plan is next week to do a full episode on Historic. Historic becoming the premier non-rotating format after Standard, just because so much more of Magic right now is being played on Arena due to the virus. So the fact that Modern Horizons came out in a period of time where just fatigue with power level was happening is what I think has hurt it a little bit in its eye, or it both made the problem worse and it made it look worse. Same as, and the fact that I want to say War of the Spark is one of the best sets ever printed, but then Ikoria came out with the companion mechanic and affected it so heavily. And Eldraine is out there with Oko, maybe the most powerful standard card printed since Jace.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get there in just a quick second. And our point here tonight, guys, is not to just do a review set by set. I think it's trying to kind of like set the stage for kind of why did we ask the question? Why do we ask the question? Is Modern has it become a rotating format? And so, War of the Spark and Horizons obviously had enormous impacts, and Horizons impacts were a little bit more predictable. But now you mention Oko, you mentioned Eldraine, and it's a good set. Eldraine's a great set. But Oko, just because we had this massive impact of Planeswalkers from War of the Spark, I mean, 50% of the cards we mentioned were all Planeswalkers. They had this enormous impact. To then see Oko and start to play with Oko. And by the way, Oko is amazing and totally stupid and broken and unfair. But like, the Royal Scions is a great card. It's a fairly powerful card. Mm-hmm. It's a really good, like a really powerful. I would argue that if Oko wasn't in the set, like a hallmark Planeswalker that people would remember and like, it's on Modern play and Death Shadow. It's a card that I like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Probably our biggest miss too from our ranking.
Yeah, and that's like considered to be like very, very, very low end of its era. Like not even a top 30 card of its era.
Oh, right? Yeah, like, easy. Well, I mean, we mentioned there's 10 cards from Ikoria, there's 10 cards from War of the Spark, there's at least 4 cards, if not 6 cards better from it from Eldraine. Theros Beyond Death, which I haven't even gone to, has at least 4 cards that are better out of without me thinking, and then 2020 has 2. So that's 30 cards ish.
If the Royal Scions had been printed in Rivals of Ixalan, do you think it's the best card in the set?
Yes.
So I mean that should be a pretty strong indicator of what the last few years has done to Modern and like really actually where we're at.
Rivals of Ixalan is on a list of I think it's top or bottom 3 sets since they started playing Magic again. Right? Like Born of the Gods and Dragon's Maze. Even Dragon's Maze is better than the 2 just because Voice of Resurgence is in the set and Wear Tear and yeah, there's like random things in that set. Yeah, I don't like. I think Rivals of Ixalan I think Born of the Gods is actually the worst. We like went through this at one point. Yeah. But like that's kind of the point, right? Like the 10th best card in Eldraine is better than most of standard sets cards in general.
And Eldraine's not like Eldraine is the 3rd or 4th most powerful set in the span we're talking about. It's not right. It's not even the most powerful set.
I would say it's 3rd.
Yeah.
It's 3rd in depth. It's 1st in single powerful card.
Because do you think Oko is better than any card from any set?
So it's like what you're comparing Oko to? It's better than anything in War of the Spark. Yeah, I can say that. Other than maybe
Oko is better than three fairy. It's probably better than.
I would debate Arboreal Grazer versus Oko. No, I think it's better than anything in that set.
Renin 6
that's like Modern Horizons is it. So Modern Horizons has Renin 6 and Hogak. I think Oko is worse than both of those cards, though Hogak is a special case. It's better than anything from 2020.
And Renin 6 is totally contextual because it's so supported by its environment.
Oh, if Wasteland exists, Renin 6 is better than Oko, but Wasteland doesn't exist, so we're fine.
Yeah. Oko is just like a brutally. Also, we've said this before, but I think Oko is maybe the least fun Planeswalker to play against ever printed.
Yeah, at least, yes, I can say that confidently.
So, all right, so we get to Ikoria.
3 fairy sucks.
Yeah, it does really suck. So Theros Beyond Death, can we just visit for a second? Yeah. Is there anything from Theros Beyond Death that's on the level of what we're talking about? Say again?
Uro? But both, I mean, honestly, both Titans, both Titan Giants, Elder Giants.
Uro's really good, but like compare Uro for me to like what you think the power level of the cards we just talked about. Like, is it like
equatable?
Okay, so you think Uro and Oko are like not that far?
I think Oko's better than Uro, but I think it's not like miles better. I think Uro is under the line of problematic and Oko is above it.
Okay, but again, if Royal Scions would have been the best card in Rivals of Ixalan,
I think Uro is leagues better than Royal Scions.
So okay, so there you go. So we're not having the same kind of depth that we had out of those two sets back to back, War of the Spark and Modern Horizons, but we still are having standout cards that are being pushed that feel like they're bringing up the power level in Standard, and then conversely bringing up the power level in Modern, because again the difference is pretty vast between Modern and Standard, but a great card's a great card.
So you also have Underworld Breach, right? Like Theros Beyond Death also had insane power level cards, and some of them are like, why? Like, why does Underworld Breach exist?
It's a good question. We talked about it a little bit when it got previewed. When we did our preview episode, we obviously compared it to Yogg-Will, like I think most people did, and I guess because in general they want to push power level, and they want to give us sort of reminders and harken back to really good cards from years past. And I guess that was the newest way to figure out how to do it. It was manipulating the graveyard and sort of the escape mechanic, but ultimately it does feel like sort of an unnecessary card to have been printed. I mean, why do you think?
Oh, I think they wanted to try, can we make a fair Yawgmoth's Will, right? And they've done it, right? What's it called? From Innistrad. Every card gets flashback in your graveyard. Like, that card is fine. Fast and Flames is fine. And there's like Niv Mizzet's Mastery from Commander products. So this is an effect they've like played with, and it's been relatively fine in the past. So they're trying something else with Escape. They balanced it in a way that was actually playable, right? If it was like otherwise it doesn't see play in a weird way, but just it ended up being one step too far, partially just due to the repeatability, right? Being able to recast cards from your graveyard and being able to manipulate that makes it too powerful. You also have like Dryad of the Elysian Grove, right? That's another card.
That card's nuts. Right?
That's insane from Theros Beyond Dead. I mean, I think Theros of the sets we're talking about, other than maybe M20, is probably the least powerful, but at the same time, I think Uro's the second best. I think Uro's the best card that hasn't been banned. It's not the most fun card that's been banned.
You think Uro is like on that scale now, where it's in the crosshairs, like it's that good? Because I mean, I don't totally disagree with you in the sense that like I've played Uro and played against Uro now enough times to know that sort of like. Because I think there's a level to Magic cards when you talk about what constitutes a banning.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it is format consistency if there's one card that's just everywhere. But there's also that feeling of like, when someone plays a card against you, this is how Oko felt. Do you feel like you're suffocating? Like, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't fun for me. I'm like having a hard time like thinking about my next move because the inevitability feels impossible.
Well, there's a really good article, I think it was Sam Black, on Star City, and he wrote kind of the inevitability engines have changed for Magic, and like Uro's a great example of that, right? Like, this early game grants me, draws me a card, and gains me life. So it's like stabilizing in the best way possible, and then late game, I'm just always going to have access to a 6/6 value draw card engine, life gain stabilizing force. And is that good? For Magic, not good as in powerful, because it's very obviously powerful. And you add that to other cards where like so when I say Uro is the best, I think Through Fairy is probably a more likely to be banned card than Uro, partially due to its misery in gameplay status. Like, right, people hate that card. People don't like Uro, but they don't feel this. It's just another threat, right? It's gaining value in life, but it's not seen. Teferi is like making me hate playing Magic if it's in play against me and I can't deal with it. The other cards kind of in the format that are of a similar level are like the companions, right? Like those, like Luros, I think is banned before, or companion, the mechanic is changed before Uro is banned. And then I can't tell you what the power level of companions are because they're different cards now, so I don't know what that would be. But yeah, I think Uro is at that level. I think all of these cards are worse than Arboreal Grazer, but
I get it. I could compare Uro to like Spirit Monger, or like a card from its day that was like dominated Standard in the same way, right? Like Spirit Monger, for those of you guys in the audio that don't know, is from Apocalypse. It's black green 3. I think it's a 6/6. For 1, you can regenerate it. For like 1, you can make it any color you want. I think it's whenever it deals damage to a creature, put a 1/1 counter on it. So it has the ability, obviously, to get bigger and protects itself. It's a good creature. Like I would play that as like card 23 in some cube decks for sure. But it's definitely not a card that's on the same level as a
no, not at all.
6/6 that comes out of your graveyard for 4, that gains you life, puts lands into play when it attacks, that also, like, it's not even the same conversation.
It's a little unfair, though, just in the sense that that is a card that was the best card in Standard in an era where creatures were bad. Right? That was still an era where Magic was much more focused about the way combos were played, or if you were playing creatures, you're better off playing a Jackal Pup. Like, Jackal Pup was the card that was
but within a year of Spirit Monger, 2 years is Psychotog, which again is like the best creature, it like the world champion creature. It's the literally defines the format.
And I think Psychotog is worse than Uro.
For sure, it's worse than Uro.
Yeah.
It like again, it's not the same conversation. Like
right.
like Uro needs so little support. It like needs so little around it to be good.
Right. Like if you look at that era of Magic, the best 3 creatures, you're talking like Shapeshifter, right? You're talking about
you mean Morphling.
Morphling. You're talking about Psychotog. You're talking about Spirit Monger, and all 3 of those cards, like Morphling would be just not played, and to be honest, wouldn't be played in Standard for a while now. But kind of back to Uro and what cards I think it's comparable to, I think it's Sphinx's Revelation. And I think it's better than Sphinx's Revelation, which was maybe the best card in Return to Ravnica Standard.
Where do you see the correlation between those two?
It's a
pure mana for catch up?
No, it's you gain life and draw cards. I mean, that's the majority of it, right? Like, this is you gain life and draw cards, and once you cast it at the end game, you are probably winning because you've now gained so much advantage from it. And Sphinx's Revelation came in, you drew 5 cards and gained 5 life late game. Or Uro comes in the sense that you gained 1 card and drew a life early game, then later, and you drew 2 cards and gained 2 life. And then late game, you can then recast that card, gaining more life, drawing more cards, stabilizing, and now having a threat. I think they're pretty comparable.
Interesting.
In effect, I think Uro is just a better version of it.
It's just like not even close. Like Uro to me is just like 10 times the card that Sphinx's Rev is, but
and it's not even the best card in Standard. Like that's what's ridiculous, right? We're comparing Uro to all of these cards from seasons past to that, like these big bads. And Uro's not, and it's better than all those, and it's not even close to being the best card in Standard at the moment. I mean, like, it might be, like, it's in contention, but, like, it's definitely not the first band.
Well, so, all right. So if the question we started the episode with was, is Modern a rotating format? I mean, recently it's felt that way. And obviously, we know that previous seasons around the corner for M21. We're going to start talking about that. We're going to start talking about, kind of all of these new cards that are being introduced. Obviously, companions are, for as long as they're legal, enormously impactful. Are happy with the kind of impact that Standard sets are having on Modern? I mean, do you like it being a rotating format?
Well, I kind of want to walk through also like why we've walked through all these sets, right? We're trying to show literally between War of the Spark coming out, Modern Horizons coming out, the bannings of Hogak, Eldraine coming out, the banning of Oko and Once Upon a Time, Theros Beyond Death coming out, and now Ikoria coming out. And in between the COVID happening, so like time slowing and speeding up at the same time because time no longer matters. This podcast and turnips on my island and Animal Crossing are the only thing keeping my calendar together. You have like literally that's every 2.5. That's every 2 months. Every 2 months in the last year, Modern, not to mention Pioneer and Standard and every other format, Legacy, has been totally modified from the upcoming set. And this isn't like Wizards knows this, right? Like they've already said, we are trying to fix this. We understand that this is a negative. It takes us 2 years for the stuff we're working on today to affect you. Please bear with us over that time. Pioneer was maybe a mistake going into that mentality, right? Like they announced a format that they were going to soft launch using a rolling ban list, a no ban list Pioneer. That was, I think, in my opinion, a mistake to launch that type of format. Weirdly enough, Historic is the opposite version of that. But I think it's a negative. I think one of the things you want from a non-rotating format is stability because of the investment, right? Like now players are mad because Modern's expensive, right? That like when we were on the Professor's show, the first video that came out, half of the comments were just like, ha ha ha, I'm not going to play Modern because it costs me my arm and a leg, or I'd rather buy a Ferrari. But when it comes down to it, you're really looking at like Modern is not that expensive if you don't have to change your deck ever, right? The point of it is in Standard, I have to change my deck every 3 months. And therefore, the cards are cheaper because they're new, but I have to keep up with it. So the overall dollars out the door over a 2-year period is comparable to what one Modern deck would take to buy over that time. But in Modern, if it's rotating every 2 months, how do you keep up with that financially? Unless you have a giant. I have a pretty large Modern collection, and I am currently unable to keep up with the current rotation of the format.
That's the true answer to the question. Is you have to have an enormous collection, which is not fair. It's not a fair expectation. As somebody who's had a good size Modern collection at times, then had to sell cards off or trade cards off. I mean, look, if I didn't have you as somebody I could call and mostly borrow cards from, like it just I can't play. I can't play when the tournaments come up, when I want to go to a GP, when I want to play on FNM. Like I'm not able to do that.
The concept that Wizards is overprinting products or the idea that what products are for each person is really challenging. Because I think that they're making product that are supposed to be for niches, but I think there's less niches in Magic than people really think about. Yes, there are players that are only Commander players. There are players that are only Modern players. There are Standard only players. There are Limited only players. But there are a lot of players that are all of those things. Or there's a lot of players that do a little bit of everything. Or there's a lot of players that are 2 of those things, right? And then when you print stuff like these Secret Layers, the reason they're exciting is because they're iconic cards. But like most formats that can play Birds of Paradise play Birds of Paradise. And Standard players even have some eternal relationship for the most part. And if they don't, fine. But they have... Then sure, they're not hitting by that thing, but you have enough of your community that is invested in Magic as a whole. Like this is a lifestyle. And so when you say not every product is for everyone, a lot of the time every product is for everyone. And it's expensive and it's hard to keep up with. And at the same time, because of the power level of Standard negating the formats, my Eternal formats, to the extent that they haven't been stable for over a year, means that the money I have going out the door to be able to play this game is making it hard for me to keep up. And at what point does that make a player no longer want to play?
I mean, I think that's a very, very interesting question you ask. I think I think that reality that you're talking about is one that, you know, especially now that we are seeing such a shift to online Magic, you know, with Arena and MTGO. I think that the real question people are asking themselves of what's the cost of this game? You know, like really, truly, what does this game cost compared to other games that I could be playing now in this environment where most things are done online? Is it worth it? Right? Like we believe, because we have 25 years, 27 years of Magic history. We love it. We believe that it's sort of the holy grail of games. Like there's nothing else that compares to it. It has more history. But if you're like a player that's been at the game for 2 years, like whenever I'm at FNM, like drafting, you know, often the guy I'm playing against, the person I'm playing against tends to be, oh, I played Magic for a year, 2 years, maybe, you know, 3 is like a long time. Oh, I started playing in Theros, right? Like that's like what you hear. It's rarely is it like I've been playing for 25 years. So it's like and people have been playing in the time frame when they could have adopted another game. And I think that's the question you start asking yourself is how unique does Magic feel to a newer player? Not to us, because we're in a different class.
So I'm pretty confident that Magic is the best tabletop trading card game ever invented. Is it the best digital card game ever invented? I don't know. And in some ways it is, like, because there are things that make Magic as good as it is, and just the background of the world and just the history. One of the reasons Historic is exciting is because they're able to look at old cards and add it to the format however they feel like. The fact that I can now play Ulamog or Unburial Rights is so tight. But the idea of new players and kind of withholding them, no one that's making Magic wants Magic to get hurt, right? They're all working their best. One of the reasons that this power level spike has happened is because they realize that Standard sucks when Mono Red is the best deck for 2 years in a row. That like the Ixalan era that we mentioned is the opposite version of this being bad. And so they realize that if we push cards to be powerful, but in new and interesting ways, maybe that makes a more exciting Standard. And it ends up that the pendulum swung too far, and it just takes time for them because they're making it, and that's the conflict with digital Magic, right? It takes time for them to print new cards, and they can't change old cards digitally. Hearthstone, if they print a card that's too powerful, they make it a 2/2 versus a 3/3, or they make it cost 5 mana versus 4 mana.
Right. They're able to, because it only exists in a way that digital. When you reload your collection, they can just make it that they all change.
Wizards can't make Loros a 6-drop.
No.
They just can't, because I have a physical one, and it says it's 3 mana on the card. I think this is something that's gonna get fixed. I think some of it is just Wizards is making a lot of product and figuring out how to do that. I think secret layers are a layer on top of the bonus product, on top of the different draft sets. The fact that these draft sets are so expensive, and every single time people complain about it. And I think the biggest issue is that Wizards says this isn't for everyone, right? But it is for everyone. Just they're pricing it in a way that it's not for everyone, and that's the complaint. It's not like everyone. Most people want to draft at least once to head a double draft or whatever, double rare, the new set that's coming, double masters, I think it's called, what it's called. But a lot of players won't because they can't afford it, because it's $17 a pack, and that's, I think, the issue where people are complaining. And so it's not that card that's not that I don't want to draft that, it's that I can't, and that's, I think, the issue people are having. And secret layers have that issue as well, where I'm now buying these things because I want those cards. Those are a little bit more extracurricular, because I don't need them to play the game. But even those that are meant to be kind of exciting for people, but they're not for me. Like the Commander products are a different line, right? The standard sets are a different line.
Let me ask you this, though, on that subject. So, like, all right, $17 pack, double rare, draft environment. It's still balanced by the idea that the most expensive cards in the set are what are bringing the price up, right? Like, you're still going to open rares. It's still going to happen. Like, You're still going to open packs that have bad cards. So how is this that different than like Expeditions and Masterpieces, where it's even more limited? You're opening packs that
those are in $4. Those are in $4 packs.
Yeah, but the disparity of what you're opening the value in is.
But people aren't mad that they can't open packs. They're mad that they can't draft.
Got it. Okay, it's purely just based the draft experience is being limited by the price. Not
and now
what
they're hoping $60 really when I'm all in to be able to draft a set of double masters.
But you don't think that like so many products being released, there's so many extra sets now in the last 5 years that like if one set gets released, it's like a premium expensive set. I mean, look,
but how many
master sets were expensive.
What was the last premium set that wasn't? I guess mystery boosters, which you could only play if you are able to get to a GP, or they were $30 a pack.
Yeah.
Like that, I think that's kind of the complaint, right? Is that you say that there's a lot of these products released, but they're kind of not. There's not that many, other than secret layers and Commander products, which aren't for everyone. Like Commander products aren't for everyone. That is true. Now there's powerful cards in them that make them exciting for people, but those are built not to be like, if you don't want to play Commander or you don't want the cards in the set, you're not going to buy it.
Yeah,
you'll buy the singles. Draft formats are different, right? Like, and this draft format, the reprint one, is even weirder because it's meant to reprint cards for Modern and Pioneer and Legacy or whatever set the cards are from. We've seen cards that are in it. They're for sure cards that are Modern relevant. It's meant to be drafted, so it's meant to appeal to drafters. So that's most of Magic. And Commander players, I guess, is the third, which Kali of the Vast is in it. So like, this product is for everyone, but it's priced so that it's not. And that, I think, is the complaint that people have. And
got it.
And I think that, like, and there's not really a good solution. Like, the thing that people also don't remember is, and Wizards touched on this a little bit, the reason a pack costs as much as it, the cost of a pack dictates the value of the cards inside of it. And in reprint set, it's the reverse almost, where Magic printed Modern Masters 1, where literally every single pack I opened had made my money back. If I bought it at retail. At $7 retail, I made my money back in every pack. But because of that, every store on the planet charged $12 for it versus $7.
Right.
And other than the store that I pre-ordered the box ahead of time before we even knew what was inside of it, that's what happened across the board. And Wizards realized after that they should just start $6 then. Why are they charging the store $3 to sell it at $7? They should charge $6 to sell it for $12. And that has increased or decreased depending on what's inside of it, because whatever is inside the pack, like the value of a pack, basically it's the value of a box has to be equal to the cost of the box when you open it. Right. Otherwise, if it's more than that, stores will just open packs until it's less than that. If it's less than that, people won't open packs. And like there's like an equalizing level at that level. And so when you put a bunch of really expensive reprints into a set, it affects the overall cost of the pack in a free market environment,
which is interesting because Wizards has said openly they can't comment on the secondary market, but they obviously pay attention to the secondary market because they have to, because that's how they make their sets.
Right. I mean, and there's reprint equity, like they've mentioned that, which is like this card. We don't want to print every good card that we have available all in one set. And I think that's what happened with Modern Masters 1. Right? They printed all of them. And then for the next 4 Master sets, they like were limited in the cool cards they could print.
They had to like dilute them a little bit.
And so I think that they're just figuring out what that world looks like. And that's the issue, right? They can't include a bunch of cool stuff in a box because if they include too much good stuff, the pack is just going to be raised. The price of the pack is going to go up. That's what happened with the fetch land secret layer, right? They said a number vaguely because they don't set SRP on the Professor's episode with Blake announcing the product. And the number was like $100 more than that. And that's because most stores that got it were like, oh, I'm just going to charge $300 because that's how much 6 special lands cost.
Right.
And as soon as one store publicly started doing it, everyone else started doing it. And so it's kind of a weird battle that Wizards is playing with all of its retailers of if we print a product that is worth more than what you're supposed to charge for it, you'll charge more.
Right. I mean, that's like the free market mentality of the whole thing, which is like, this is what has been dictated by the audience. This is what they're worth. So you can't just say like, this is worth X, but the audience is like, but I want to pay Y.
Right. Well, there's like worldwide boxes, Jace's were $100. And it's kind of the reverse happens. And this is what the treasures did, right? Not treasures. The
masterpieces.
The masterpieces did, right? A value of a box of Worldwake was $100. And Jace was $100. So every other card in that box was worth less than $1. Until years later, when Manlands and Stoneforge Mystics and the other cards in that set that were good raised in value. But while that was in print, you played the Jace lottery. And if you opened a Jace, it was worth $100. It was worth more than $100 because every box had like 0.75 chance of a Jace.
Stoneforges and then
you would get Stoneforges and all those you'd open worth nothing because Jace was carrying the weight of the value of that box.
Yep.
And that's what happens with Magic boxes. That's
which
what
is one of the reasons why Manlands were so useless for such a long time.
Not useless; they just were cheap. They were
like Colonnades were like $1 for a long time.
Well, and then Colonnades especially because they were the buy box promo. So every box got you a Colonnade, and but yeah, so it's there's not a lot of solutions for what to do with the price of a box, and it sucks. And I agree. Who is this made for? And I don't like that's kind of I think where we're at with that. And that's layering on the fact that eternal formats are rotating, so people's investments in their collections and the deck that they've spent a long time doing is falling out from under them. That's, I think, what the strife of the moment is, among all of the other things in the world, is the price of my collection is depreciating at the same time that you're charging me more for things that are depreciating my collection.
and that's the part of it that I can relate to, that I agree with. Is like, I hate the idea that like on a month that I'm more keyed into Magic, on a month that I'm less keyed into Magic, my cards are worth less money. That's hard for me to realize, like, you know, and then I look back and something that used to be worth $40 is worth $7, but there's like some new thing that's outclassed it or a new version that's way cooler, you know, something like that. So anyway, I think that kind of wraps up the topic tonight. I think the answer to the question is, you know, Modern is obviously not a rotating format, though I would love to know what you guys think in the comments. Are you happy with the way that it's functioned the last couple of years, where it does feel a little bit more like one? I mean, is this the way you want it to feel? Are you inclined to play more Modern if it continues this way, or less?
Yeah, there's like a general question that I'd love to hear the answer to, of just, what do you want? What would you like Wizards to do? And one thing is, be nice to them. First off, be nice to like all of the public facing Wizards employees. They are generally not the cause of these situations. They care so much about Magic. They've designated their life to making this game literally the greatest game, I think, on the planet. And there are issues happening right now, but being mean to them on the internet is not okay. Don't do that. And in fact, don't be mean to anyone on the internet. Positivity is a good thing. But yeah, like Morrow and Gavin and Blake and all of the teams in on the PR and side, like they are the front lines, but they do not be mean to them. You can issue complaints, you can be calm about them, but definitely no death threats. But I would like to hear from everyone on what they think what the problem might be and what issues they're facing and what solutions they want. And I mentioned this in the hot take next week, but also make sure to go, stores are hurting right now. Like this issue is at hand to them, and they are, if you have an ability to be able to pre-order product from them or do pickups or help them, definitely do. They need your support as much as anyone. Definitely check out our social media, Twitter, Facebook, Discord. I'm Twitch streaming about once a week, twitch.tv/Kess Wiley. Ben has a new YouTube channel, Nerds in Suits.
Yeah, please check that out. I'm actually, I turned 32 years old in about a week and a half, and my goal was to try to get to 2,000 subs by my 32nd birthday. I don't think it's going to happen, but we're only a couple hundred away. So if you guys are watching or listening and you have been a fan of what we're doing for a long time and you want to help me out, you want to support, I promise you, I'm working my butt off on the content. Really, I am. Interviews and doing music stuff on there. So go check out youtube.com/nerdsinsuits. It would really mean.
So can I call you a nerd now?
I think I've always been a nerd.
Also
I've always worn suits.
Yeah, that's all. Those are the two things to know about Ben Bateman. So yeah, and beyond that, make sure to subscribe, like, follow. There's a bell below. You'll get a little alert every time we come up with new episodes. Between hot takes and this and our streams, all of those things get posted to YouTube. So definitely check that out. Big thank you to Marshall and Time Travel Media for helping kind of make the show happen, and thank you to our patrons for helping us be able to kind of afford all of the stuff and technology, including Marshall, that make the show happen week to week. And thank you guys so much for watching. We love that you guys keep doing it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Pinky's out.
Oh, wait.
This has been a production of Time Traveler Media, sending podcasts into the future.